First up, though, let's turn our attention back to what happened in the High Court yesterday. Cameras flashing, of course, as Prince Harry's arrival and departure from court on those 2 days. But that is the end of his evidence. 5 hours on Tuesday, 3 hours yesterday, facing cross-examination from the lawyers representing Mirror Group newspapers, who he is suing, claiming his phone was hacked for other nefarious illegal criminal activity took place behind 33 different articles written in Mirror Group newspapers over a very long period of years. Yesterday, though, an extraordinary exchange where the KC, the barrister for Mirror Group newspapers, Andrew Green, asked the fifth in line to the throne, are you aware of any evidence that gives any indication whatsoever as to the extent to which you were hacked, if at all? To which Prince Harry replied, no. That's part of the reason why I'm here. Well, let's talk to Ian Bloom. He's a media law consultant and joins us once again on this. Good morning to you, Ian.
Good morning.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. It's interesting. I mean, Prince Harry basically admitting in a case which is reliant on evidence as opposed to, you know, his and Meghan's truth, saying he's not aware of any evidence that he was hacked by a tabloid news group. He's saying, look, actually he thinks the evidence was destroyed, whether destroyed deliberately or just a matter of, you know, the time frame we're looking at. Some of these stories are, you know, 20 years old. Do you think that's going to fly with a judge? It doesn't seem to have flown with many journalists writing about this, but hey, we've got a stake in all of this as well.
Yeah. The problem Harry had in cross-examination for those 8 hours was that when Andrew Green KC for the newspapers tried to tie in specific acts of illegality with stories that appeared in the papers, Harry couldn't actually do so. So what he had to say was, look, we know that the newspapers group did this in the past. The journalists hacked, the investigators blagged. We know that stories were published based on that information. We know that the group has settled cases with other claimants on that basis. We know that they've admitted in the China White thing about 20 years ago that they got it wrong. Are you seriously saying that the China White incident was the only time they sourced the story about me from illegal methods? It's unlikely, isn't it?
And that's the point he's making, yeah.
Yeah, and he said also, look, I'm here to give evidence. Why didn't you call, why haven't you called the journalists who published this stuff?
Wouldn't Harry's side been able to do that, to call anybody to give evidence?
Well, the big problem with calling someone is that unless they volunteer, you have to subpoena them. When you subpoena someone, it's much more difficult to know what they're going to say. You don't have access to a witness statement. They won't give you one. So you're effectively calling a hostile witness without knowing what they're going to say. That's quite dangerous tactically.
OK, that's interesting. But of course, I mean, Prince Harry, he says that he's doing this basically, you know, for his wife. He has said that the reason why he's bringing this case is over alleged phone hacking and was to protect his wife Meghan. And he obviously still blames the media, particularly the paparazzi, for the death of his mother all those years ago when he was a young boy. But he says he hopes his case will stop the abuse, intrusion and hate. He's not trying to just battle in the court of the High Court here, is he? He's also looking at the court of public opinion. He believes he's sort of on a crusade, doesn't he? How do you think he's doing in the court of public opinion? Because, I mean, look, you know, journalists, we're way down there along with lawyers and estate agents and politicians when it comes to, you know, public esteem, aren't we?
Well, I would say speak for yourself, but I think you're right.
Oh, sorry, that's just me.
I think you're right. I actually think he wasn't just doing it for Meghan. He was doing it, as you said, for his late mother. He was doing it for his ex-girlfriend, Chelsea Davies.
Yeah, she came up a lot yesterday, didn't she?
He was doing it for his former girlfriend, Caroline Flack, sadly deceased. He was doing it for himself. And he was doing it for a bunch of celebrities and lesser unknown people, more unknown people, who've had their privacy invaded by the tabloids over the years.
It does have a feeling of, though, I mean, again, a lot of people have lots of sympathy, and we know wrongdoing has been admitted by a number of different newspaper groups. There are still other ongoing cases. But this does have a feeling of sort of revenge, doesn't it? That he is a troubled, angry, sad, bitter man who is looking for his revenge. He's got it's got highly paid lawyers. I mean, hey, it doesn't matter whether they win or lose. The lawyers still get paid, as we know. Millions of pounds being under, his KC is one of the top KCs in the country. He makes an absolute fortune doing, obviously, many would say a very good job. But, the only people who always benefit from this stuff are the lawyers. He could end up, if he loses this case, many millions out of pocket. But if he wins in the court of public opinion, if he wins that empathy, that sympathy, and the plaudits of many who say, yeah, you took on the tabloid newspapers, which everyone loves to read and then loves to hate, do you think that it will still be a victory? Would he consider it a victory?
Well, sadly, we don't chat that often, if at all. So I'm not sure that I can speak for him. But I suspect, that after this, the dial hasn't shifted that much.
No.
Those who liked him to start with will still like him. Those who find him objectionable will still find him objectionable. But I do suspect that there's a sneaking admiration for his courage in submitting to this ordeal. Anyone, I was involved in the law for a long time, anyone who puts himself through cross-examination by an expert, and Andrew Green's an expert, has some bottle.
Yeah. And he does appear to have actually done a fairly good job in the witness stand. I think and many people were expecting there would be, explosive moments where he would, lose his cool and perhaps be a little bit arrogant. And he's never faced tough questioning like this before, but he seems to be very well prepared.
Well, I think there was no gotcha moment.
No.
And couldn't get him on any single point that would have killed his case. So he did really well to deal with the questions that were put.
However, there was also the case where, again and again, I know there are some articles which are perhaps standing up more under the scrutiny of the defence barristers, but actually, in some cases, this came out in the court on Tuesday, in the first day of his evidence. This article, you're saying that this was a result of phone hacking. The quotes are quotes from an interview you yourself gave, or the information is from a Buckingham Palace press release, or an article that was published, in the Sunday papers a couple of days early, that sort of thing. So, what I'm amazed is that the lawyers for Prince Harry and the other celebrities involved in this didn't perhaps spot these fatal flaws in the 33 articles that they brought forward as evidence of phone hacking and other illegal activity.
What happens in a case like this is that there are always surprises, and however well you think you've prepared, something's going to turn up that's going to discomfort you. The defence has been discomforted. The claimant has been discomforted. It's the way it goes. It's a 7-week marathon. So this sort of thing is going to happen. It's one of the reasons lawyers say to their clients, basically, you're entering the casino. This is a lottery. Win, you can lose. And we cannot tell you, we cannot predict, we cannot script the whole thing. We can only set out a framework. And when you're in that box and you're asked questions that we didn't expect because we couldn't, you're on your own. Yeah. And that is part of the theatre of it.
Yeah, indeed. And certainly a lot of us have been enjoying that theatre. We'll see what comes of it. We won't get the results of the case until September at the earliest. Ian Bloom, media law consultant, thank you so much for joining us. That considered opinion.